Hello, this is Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. This is the Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. And our very, very special guest today is Patty Casey, who is the retired commander of the Youth Division from the Chicago Police Department. Welcome, Patty. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Hey, Bill.
Hey.
So Patty has been working very hard on addressing missing persons, the missing persons cases, and how missing persons could be found more efficiently. So you were the Youth Division Commander in the Chicago Police Department before retiring, but how much of your work in the Youth Division had to do with the missing and abduction cases?
Well, I didn't oversee the detectives that investigate the cases, but I did have the missing person desk. And a lot of times when someone was missing, they would call the Youth Division for help. And I took those calls, and I saw that there were some problems at the time with missing person investigations, and that Chicago does not have a missing person unit that is dedicated to missing. So my role was not in the investigative part, but my role was more in looking at what the numbers were that came in. For instance, in 2021, there were almost 8,600 missing person cases in Chicago. Now you got to keep in mind that not everyone makes a report either. So that number was probably higher. And many of the persons missing were of black or brown color.
So you looked at the numbers. What did the department use the numbers for exactly?
Well, all numbers, reports that are made with the Chicago Police Department are tracked. So really it was for comparison to, 1 year to the next. Or if someone did FOIA, get a Freedom of Information Act, that they would be able to supply them with the numbers. One thing that I saw during this time was that our reports are not automated. So that was one thing I was working on. And how we became involved together is David came into my office one day. He wanted to talk, and I said, yeah, I'll talk to you. And he told me about your group, and I began to work on that while I was still on the Chicago Police Department, which I retired in 2021.
Yeah, that is the Chicago Missing Persons Guild.
Yes.
And when David came in to speak with you, what was the main problem that he presented to you?
The main problem he presented was that many of the missing, of course, were of color. Also, the numbers. He wanted to talk about the numbers, and he wanted to see what cases were closed and what were still open. And one thing he also talked to me about was Chicago did not have pictures of their missing on the Chicago Police Department website. That the last picture had been from 2016, and that was unfortunately of a deceased body that they were looking to identify. So while I was still on the job, that was one thing that I and several other officers with me, we worked on getting those pictures back on the site and getting the detectives to ask the family, hey, can I have a picture? So they can go on and say. So that was a pretty big accomplishment.
Yes.
And it came about because of the Missing Person Guild and, our work together. So after I retired, I am still a member of your group and very dedicated to, making sure that missing person cases get investigated the right way.
So just imagine, we don't have photos on the website. How are people going to find these missing people without the photos?
And that was a problem, but that has been rectified. Right now we are seeing a lot of pictures posted on the Chicago Police Department website, so I have to give them kudos for that. That is being done. But our voice, the squeaky wheel, of course, helped.
Definitely. How has your work with the Chicago Missing Persons Guild affected the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, or NamUs?
I know that Mandy, who is a member of our group, she has been able to identify several missing persons that are in NamUs. So I think that our effort that we are making, you know, is great, and we're getting the name of the Missing Person Guild out there. So the more partners we get, the you know, more improvement we can all discuss on missing person cases.
And of those 8,600 that were missing in, it was 2021,
Yes.
how many cases were closed?
In that case, in 2021, most of the cases were closed. There were about 73 cases that were not closed, where the missing person still had not been located. You know, and although it sounds like a small number, if that's your family member, it doesn't matter that it's 73 or 7,000, right? Your person is still missing, so that's problematic.
And what I've heard people say before is if it's one person, it's a tragedy,
Right.
but if it's all of these people, it's a statistic.
Right.
And so how do we bring all of these people from the statistics side into, you know, actually getting found and being paid attention to? How do we give a voice to the people who may no longer have a voice?
And I think we are seeing more missing person groups rise, right, and trying to get heard out there. And I think for us, you know, we have to say that, you know, 73 persons missing in 2021, that's tragic, right? Because someone's sitting at home not knowing where their loved one is. So that is tragic. Again, this is more about getting out there and working together. You know, we need to work with the Chicago Police Department or get our voice heard there so that we can get a missing persons unit that is dedicated specifically to missing persons.
Could you maybe explain to our audience how far along we are with this getting a missing persons unit instead of a missing persons desk, and what efforts are being taken right now?
Yeah, we have asked, I know we have asked for meetings. We have had at least one meeting with the Commander of Youth Investigations, who oversees the missing person desk. And he does have a voice in the Chicago Police Department because he's a commander. So if we can get a missing persons desk dedicated, as opposed to area detectives investigating who are way overwhelmed because there's not enough detectives. So they don't have time to really go out and investigate. They sort of have the missing there and they're hoping the missing comes home and they can close the case. You know, unless they know for sure it's some kind of high profile case or abduction, you know, then you might have a group of detectives going out, you know, they're missing, you know, which was the case in the last high profile case was the young lady near Armitage and Kedzie, who they feared right away that she had been harmed. You know, and I have to say again, the Chicago Police Department in this instance, they had the case solved in about 24 hours. You know, they knew it was her boyfriend and he's being charged appropriately.
Yes. For those people that are found, so are the photos removed, everything removed, but if maybe some other family members that are not totally apprised of the situation that the person has been found, are they able to go into the database and to just check, and then if the picture has been removed, are they able to like see the resolution? Let's say of those 8,600, you know, they have a lot of family members that may not be communicating.
They are. Anyone can go into the Chicago Police website and access the pictures of missing persons, including family members. So if they know that their family member picture has been put there and then it's taken down, they can always call the detective that's assigned to the case and say, why is the picture taken down? Does that mean my loved one's been found? Or has my loved one been injured? Or is my loved one deceased? What's going on? So,
is there any update that the person has been found a little bit before the whole article is taken down about the case?
No, unfortunately, that's something that we can work on. You know, the only update, you know, that there might be is that the person's been found. As far as where the person's been found, we don't know, and that's also problematic in investigations. Again, you know, it's important to know where that person is located, especially if they go missing again. You know, especially if it's a child, maybe the child runs away, every week or every month. We should want to know where that child has gone.
Right, right. All those past incidents could help locate the child in the present case.
Right. In the future, they could help in the future. Another thing, when Chicago recovers a missing child from another jurisdiction, we're not doing any paper on it. So again, we have to ask ourselves, why is the child coming from Texas to Chicago? What's going on?
And is there a trend there?
Right? Yeah.
Is it
and we
human
don't.
trafficking possibly?
Right. And we wouldn't know that right now because we are not documenting that. What we're doing is just sending, calling the jurisdiction and saying, hey, we've got Katie, she's here, and making arrangements to put her on a plane to get back to the other jurisdiction.
So there's little or is there no communication between the Chicago police and the other jurisdictions throughout the United States?
There is communication, but we're not asking the right questions, right? So there's good communication and there's good partnerships that are being formed by the Chicago police and other jurisdictions, but no one is really thinking of that. They're just thinking, okay, we found the person and our case is closed. Now, I don't know in the jurisdictions, they may ask, why were you in Chicago? But I know that Chicago's not getting a lot of feedback on that.
Would that be like going the extra mile beyond the job description? Maybe that's the issue?
That has not even been addressed. And, as far as doing some kind of paperwork or really looking into investigating it on our end. Right? So that is something that I think we had a missing persons unit again. I'm really an advocate, and I know all you guys are too, for having an actual missing person desk that does that solely. So all these little loopholes now, we could try to close and make missing person investigations better.
Right, tie the strings together and then maybe address the root of some of the problems.
Yes, exactly.
In what ways could police officers be trained so that they can assist better in missing persons cases?
Well, some of the ways are, like we just talked about, they need to be educated on why missing persons are so important. Right now, they're sort of run-of-the-mill. All right? So, if it's just, okay, he's missing and there's no unusual circumstances, all right, with the detectives don't have the time for one and are not really going out there and beating the pavement. So I think now you have to wait till something tragic. We have all the missing persons now in Chicago that have been, winding up in the river or, in Lake Michigan. So now, are those tied in together? The Chicago Police Department really hasn't released a statement saying they think that any are related. But because you've had so many, if I'm the officer, I'm going to take the extra mile. But as far as training goes, they need to be in a class, and they need to have NamUs or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or someone that's really well-versed in the topic, come in and explain why it's important to do a detailed narrative when the person goes missing, and more importantly, why it's so important to do a detailed narrative when the person is found. And, I think that it would be helpful to the officers if they did have the ability to write a missing persons report on the computer. They could just easily run how many times that person's been missing, where they've gone, if that was, detailed, and hopefully find the missing person a little sooner.
Yeah, if there were only like a template for like let's say a sheet, like a Google sheet or something like that, and then all the data is there, it makes the job go faster.
Yeah, when I was with the Chicago Police Department before I retired, I was working on, we had a little group together, and we had talked about getting the missing report automated. And one thing I wanted on there was a screening for human trafficking to see if that was flagged. And I've been told now that they are working on it, but their IT department has says that's not possible to add any boxes. And I'm going to say right now, they're wrong. They just don't want to add any boxes because it's complicated. But I mean, we have to start adding those extra boxes and going that extra mile. So, families know where they are. And families should be updated on, their missing. And I know, I'm going to just use, there is one missing, I don't want to use names, but, she was a postal worker, and her family, is out there and they're advocating for missing persons, but their daughter still has not been found. So hopefully the detectives are giving them updates. That is one missing that is, was missing, which was investigated thoroughly. So hopefully, hopefully
So
they'll get
it
some
became high
result.
profile and got more attention because of the family?
It got more attention because she was a U.S. postal worker, right? And I know the family has been very vocal in their advocacy. So, I think that too can help. Families got to, I'm not saying call the detective every day, but if they don't hear something, they should be following up, a month, 2 months later. I know if a missing is gone for longer than a month, the detective is supposed to visit the family and see if they can get any DNA, and then they put that in NamUs, right? There's DNA in NamUs in case the missing ends up tragically and is found deceased, which you have a certain proportion of missings that happens.
Let's say those 73 that have not been found yet. So how often is their case revisited? Once a month?
Their case is supposed to be visited once a month. Is it? I don't know if we're monitoring that. Is there a report done once a month that says no further leads, or is there a report that says, oh, we got a lead? I couldn't answer that.
And for families that hire detectives, private detectives to help on the case, what advice do you have for them? Would it help for whatever they find to be shared with the police, and somehow they work together with the police?
I was working with a doctor from University of Illinois Chicago that was doing research on how families, the private detectives, got along with the police, and nationwide, not just in Chicago. It appeared that they butted heads, for some reason, stepped on each other's toes. And that's one thing we have to encourage, and we can do that in training. Hey, if there is a private detective, you need to share what information you can with that private detective. And the private detective has to share information with you because, two heads are better than one, right? So we do have to work on improving relationships there.
Okay. And if the people wanted to find updates, the family, they could call the detective, and the detective is supposed to reveal as much information as possible. But if something has been unconfirmed, but it might be a lead, are they allowed to reveal that?
Well, they can reveal something, but in some cases, if they think someone in the family harmed the missing, okay, they can't give too much information because they're trying to build a case,
Right.
For this other crime that may have been committed, or in some cases, all they can tell is the missing is the missing's found, and they don't want you to find them. If it's over 18, if the missing's over 18, and the detective finds them, and they don't want to tell the family any information. The detective can't tell them any information other than the missing is safe.
So there are many different circumstances.
Yes.
Maybe it's a runaway, maybe human trafficking, maybe deceased,
Right.
maybe a lost child.
Right.
So the circumstances dictate maybe the priority.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's a good way of putting it, but again, we want every missing to be given a little attention, not just the ones that, are high profile right away. And I could just bring up a case from a few years ago that I was helping a mother with, that she knew her child was not a runaway. She was certain of that. She was certain that something had happened. And I actually was calling the detective and saying, hey, what's going on in this case? And they're like, oh, nothing right now. But a few months later, her child was found in an abandoned building, deceased. So the detectives right away, I can say, they thought this is just another runaway and she's going to come back home. Because most runaways do, right? They go out for the weekend or they go out for the night and they come back home. So in this case, there was not a lot of follow-up. And unfortunately, the child was found murdered.
Do you know if there were any changes made as a result of that case, different procedures that were put into place so that something like that wouldn't happen again?
Not that I know of. I think that a lot of times, because of the detective's workload, and they just don't have time to do a thorough investigation, that if I think that child's going to come back tomorrow, I'm going to work on a different case that I have. So again, a missing persons unit that just solely focuses on missing persons would be so important, but I think we were told that would just be too expensive right now, that there's not enough money in the budget for that to happen. So that's something where, we really have to go to City Hall.
So right now we have a missing persons desk, and it covers the 77 communities in the city of Chicago, the 50 wards in the city of Chicago, and it's funded by the Chicago City Council
Yes.
decisions and the mayor,
Yes.
who's the 51st vote there.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting any federal funding, and how are we doing with the city of Chicago funding?
No, we're not getting federal funding, as far as I know, as far as grants or any extra money. The city allows the Chicago Police Department a special budget every year, for each department. And right now, the missing persons desk, when they got one of these 7,900 missings or 7,600 missings, they're going to disseminate the missing report to one of 5 areas. And there, the detective is going to do an investigation when they can, if they can, right? Again, because it's about their caseload. And it's about the number of detectives that are staffing the detective areas right now, which is my understanding, because I still have contact with a lot of them, that they are still grossly understaffed.
Is there like one person at the missing desk, or is it more than one?
The missing person's desk has several persons working at a time, because they also do child abuse hotlines in addition to the missings. So they have double duty, right? And they disseminate the child abuse hotlines also to the area. So there's 1 or 2 people working normally, and a sergeant works during the day with them. So they don't do any investigation. They just put the missing person's information in a computer system that we call leads, and they filter the missing out to wherever it happened. So some areas might have twice the amount of missings. You might have on the south side twice the amount of missings as you do on the west side or the north side. So it really depends where you work, how many jobs you get.
For a missing person unit, how many officers would that encompass? How many in a unit?
I would think you would probably need to start out with about 25 officers and at least 2 supervisors, if not more. So, again, that would be a number that we would have to propose to City Council. Like, we need more money. We'd have to really advocate for the Chicago Police Department.
Yes. And let's see, there was something else. For the areas, we only have like about a minute and a half left, but how do the areas work together? The different police areas, like there's 5 areas, right?
Right.
Do they work separately in the missing persons cases? If something overlaps, how well do they work together?
Well, you know what? You can run a name check on a person, and if you're a missing, say a runaway, you're going to show as a victim. And you might have, 10 cases. And if one detective in Area 3 sees that Area 2 has the same victim that's run away sometimes, what they should be doing is exchanging information. Like, do you have any information on where this child went and where this child was found? And, the better detectives will do that. Or I shouldn't say better. The detectives that have time,
Yes.
should be doing that. But again, if you're looking at a detective that's swamped, he may not even run, you're supposed to run the victim to see how many reports they are, but he may not even have the time to do that. So
Too much workload.
it's really about the workload and the manpower. It could be better.
Is there any, if viewers wanted to learn more, is there any resources that you could direct them to, or if where could our viewers go for more information?
Well, I mean, all the major, persons that are involved in like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they have information on missings on their site. They also have pictures of children on their site that have been missing and not recovered. So it's a great site. NamUs, it's a website for unidentified missing persons that have been found. You can go on there because they have other branches on the site other than just the pictures of the found missings. Where they can give you some information. The Chicago Police Department too can also help you. So I suggest those sites.
All right. Thank you so much, Patty Casey, retired Youth Division Commander of the Chicago Police Department, for joining us today and talking about the missing persons and how better to find them. This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us today, and see you again next week.